I'm part of a group of research scientists trying to bridge the gap between climate and society. And as climatologists, we are always trying to improve the models out there, but there's a demand to connect this with on-the-ground farmers, naturally. Our system, and this has been taking a couple of years now to develop, incorporates many dynamic models that are produced by institutions like NCAR, NASA, to improve our capabilities, our predictive skill. Just imagine, I'm going to start this intervention with a question. Just imagine if you could predict today how precipitation is going to be in June, July, August, for instance. And I'm going to mention a study case in Guatemala because that's where the model has been more developed. We do have 5 other countries, including many coffee producer countries like Vietnam, Colombia, that are actually getting this type of models. But just imagine if you could predict today how precipitation is going to be in June, July, August. And for this particular case in Guatemala, in this particular basin in the Pacific coast, that is when we're filling the grain of the coffee, right? So just imagine that now you could start making decisions on the fertilizations. If you could start thinking about, hey, should I apply or invest in a systemic fertilizer or not? Should I start to think about pruning the trees for shade management, which relates to Patrick's assessment on carbon, right? Can I invest in training people to apply copper for coffee leaf rust management? Just imagine that you have the power now, today, to start making those decisions, to start to account for the budget that carries out those decisions finally on the ground. This is very critical for costs, to reducing costs, to improving yield. And so what we have done is get the best dynamic models from general circulation models out there being produced by NASA, again, for instance, and going at the sub-level, which is another demand from users. Users demand information that is at scale for decision-making. Well, the good news is we are getting there. Again, science is growing exponentially and the models are getting better at the predictive skill, but we have to connect that to the farmers. And so what we have done in this particular system, and which makes it different from others, is that we're moving away from just observing the sea surface temperatures in the Pacific as a predictor to precipitation and temperature, let's say in Central America. What we're doing now, it's incorporating many other mechanisms that will help us understand the climate in these regions. And the last part of this, which is the most important, is we have been developing a system that can deliver information to different thresholds. And that means that we are moving away from just telling farmers below normal or above precipitation regimes to telling them, if you need at least 400 millimeters of rain for June, July, August, I can tell you the probabilities of occurrence of that type of event. And in our perspective, that is, it's easier to connect that because we have thresholds at different farms in different locations, even one side of the mountain to the other. It is easier to connect those thresholds with risk management and decision-making on the ground. So if for me as a producer, I have, that minimum requirement of 400 millimeters of precipitation in June, July, August, and I know that now, I can start to make decisions and accommodate my inputs on the farm. So that's related to grain filling, for instance, but it can easily be related to coffee leaf rust and other fungus and pest infestations that can be related to increased precipitation. It can be related to temperatures. We know that temperature has increased in most of the territories under coffee, and you need to manage soil moisture. So if you know in advance that you have to let wheat grow in between coffee bushes, then that's another adaptation strategy. So the possibilities are great with the systems. Now we are at the stage where we have developed the studies at pilot sites and we are ready to expand. Naturally, in the case of Guatemala, and I can share this study with all of you afterwards, we can start to predict precipitation, particularly since February for June, July, August. That's a month in advance before we have to deal with a climate extreme. And so That might not be the case for every region in the world, because that's specifically to the climate mechanisms in that location. But there is hope that if we get good information, for instance, yield production and on the ground information from weather stations, we can create something for each region. Again, the scale at which we are producing this is very fine, up to 8 kilometers, for instance. So just imagine moving from the 250 kilometers of the climate models all the way to 8 kilometers. And we do this 30 years in the back. So every time we generate a system like this, we are already working with something that has been validated for the last 30 years. So the statistics are solid. And again, science is growing on that side. I will say the next step is to connect it to all of you, to farmers, to users, even along the value chain, to those who are selling fertilizers, right? To prepare for a demand on certain types of fertilizers. And so this is good news, and I'm excited to share this with you all.